What if I told you that before Islam, before Christianity, before recorded history itself, Turkish mothers whispered prayers to a golden goddess who watched over every birth, every child, every family? For more than 3,000 years, from the windswept steppes of Central Asia to the palaces of the Ottoman Empire, one divine figure remained constant in Turkish culture. Her name was Umay, and she was the most beloved deity in the Turkish spiritual world. This is the story of the Golden Mother Goddess, and her influence reaches further than you can imagine. Umay is one of the oldest and most enduring figures in Turkish mythology, a goddess whose worship spans millennia and whose influence persisted through countless cultural transformations. Known as the Golden Mother, the Sky Goddess, or simply the protector of children, Umay occupied a unique position in the ancient Turkish pantheon. Unlike war gods or thunder deities, Umay's domain was the most intimate and universal of human experiences: birth, motherhood, and the protection of children. Her origins trace back to the pre-Islamic Turkic peoples of Central Asia, the nomadic tribes who roamed the vast steppes between Mongolia and the Black Sea. In their worldview, the universe was governed by Tengri, the supreme sky god, but it was Umay who touched everyday life most directly. She was believed to be present at every birth, guiding the child safely into the world. She protected infants from illness and evil spirits. She gave strength to mothers and ensured the continuity of family lines. The name Umay itself is ancient, possibly deriving from the Turkic word for womb or placenta, emphasizing her connection to childbirth and female fertility. Historical records show that sacrifices were made to her, prayers were offered in her name, and amulets bearing her symbols were worn by pregnant women and young children. Even today, across Turkey, Central Asia, and wherever Turkish culture has spread, traces of Umay persist in traditions, folklore, and cultural practices. Understanding Umay means understanding a fundamental aspect of Turkish identity that transcends religion, empire, and time itself. To understand Umay's significance, we must journey back to the world of the ancient Turkic peoples. Between the 6th and 13th centuries, before the Great Migrations westward, Turkish tribes dominated the Eurasian steppes. These were nomadic societies built on horseback, living in felt tents called yurts, moving with the seasons, and surviving in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Life on the steppes was precarious, winters were brutal, resources were scarce, and the survival of the tribe depended entirely on one factor: children. In this context, Umay was not merely a religious figure, but a necessity. Infant mortality was extraordinarily high. Childbirth itself was dangerous, often fatal for both mother and child. Disease could wipe out entire families in days. The ability to bear and raise healthy children determined whether a family line would continue or vanish into the endless grass. Umay represented hope in the face of these overwhelming odds. The ancient Turks practiced a form of shamanic religion centered on Tengri, the eternal blue sky. But while Tengri ruled the cosmos, Umay ruled the home. She was depicted as a radiant woman, often with golden hair or surrounded by golden light, descending from the heavens to guide souls into newborn bodies. Ancient petroglyphs and stone carvings show her with outstretched arms, welcoming children into life. Shamans would invoke her during difficult births, and mothers would make offerings to ensure her protection. What's remarkable about Umay is her universality across Turkish tribes. Whether among the Gökturks, Uyghurs, Kipchaks, or Oghuz, Umay appeared in myths and rituals. This consistency suggests she was part of the earliest Turkish belief systems, predating the tribal divisions and conflicts that characterized later history. She was the thread connecting all Turkish peoples, a shared divine mother who transcended political boundaries. As Turkish tribes began their gradual migration westward, pushed by climate change, conflicts, and opportunity, Umay traveled with them. She would witness their transformation from steppe nomads to settled kingdoms, and eventually to one of history's greatest empires. But could she survive the coming religious transformation that would change Turkish civilization forever? The great turning point in Turkish history came in the 10th century when Turkish tribes began converting to Islam. This was not a sudden transformation, but a gradual process spanning centuries, and it posed an existential threat to Umay. Islam was strictly monotheistic, acknowledging only Allah as divine. The old gods of the steppes, including Tengri himself, were gradually abandoned or reinterpreted. Umay should have disappeared alongside them, relegated to forgotten mythology, like countless other pre-Islamic deities. But something extraordinary happened instead. Umay survived. She survived because her role was too essential to lose. Turkish women still needed protection during childbirth. Mothers still feared for their children's lives. The dangers that made Umay necessary in the 6th century remained just as pressing in the 11th, 12th, and 13th centuries. So rather than abandoning her, Turkish culture adapted her. She was never officially incorporated into Islam, but she was never fully rejected either. Instead, she became part of what scholars call folk Islam, the layer of traditional beliefs that existed alongside orthodox religious practice. During the rise of the Seljuk Empire in the 11th century, Turkish culture underwent massive transformation. The Seljuks built mosques, madrasas, and great cities. They became champions of Islam, yet in their homes, women still whispered prayers to Umay. Amulets inscribed with Quranic verses were worn alongside traditional protective symbols associated with the Golden Mother. Blue beads, believed to ward off the evil eye, became common, their color echoing Umay's celestial origins. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the ancient goddess who shaped Turkish culture, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what fascinates you most about Turkish mythology. It really helps the channel grow. The Ottoman Empire, which rose in the 13th century and would dominate for 600 years, saw this synthesis continue and deepen. Ottoman court culture was thoroughly Islamic, but Ottoman household culture remained deeply influenced by pre-Islamic traditions. Birth rituals, wedding customs, and child-rearing practices all bore Umay's invisible fingerprints. She had transformed from a goddess into something more subtle and more enduring, a cultural memory, a protective instinct, a mother's whispered hope. The true testament to Umay's enduring power came in the form of Turkish folk practices that persisted into the modern era. Ethnographic studies from the 19th and 20th centuries revealed a fascinating reality. Across Anatolia, Central Asia, and the Turkic world, mothers were still invoking Umay, often without even knowing her name. The practices had been separated from their mythological origins, but the essence remained. When a Turkish child was born, it was traditional to place a knife or scissors under the pillow to protect the infant from evil spirits. This practice, widespread throughout Turkey and Central Asia, directly echoed ancient rituals to invoke Umay's protection. The knife represented her power to cut the threads that malevolent spirits might use to harm the child. New mothers would avoid showing their babies to strangers for 40 days, a quarantine period that combined practical health concerns with spiritual protection. Umay was believed to be most vigilant during this vulnerable time. The Kırk Basması tradition, where a baby was formally bathed on the 40th day after birth, marked the end of Umay's most intensive protection period and the child's official introduction to the community. The color red, associated with life force and protection, was commonly used in children's clothing and nursery decorations, echoing Umay's vital energy. When a child fell ill, traditional healers called okak would perform rituals that combined Islamic prayers with practices that predated Islam by centuries. Even more remarkably, Umay's name survived in living memory among some Turkic peoples. In Siberia and Central Asia, where Islam arrived later and traditional practices remained stronger, 20th century anthropologists recorded elderly women who still explicitly called upon Umay Ana, Mother Umay, during childbirth. Altai Turks maintained shrines dedicated to her well into the Soviet period. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our documentaries exploring the incredible stories of Turkish history and mythology. What made Umay's survival so remarkable was that she never became an act of rebellion against Islam. She simply became invisible, woven so deeply into the fabric of Turkish culture that her presence felt natural, inevitable, and wholly compatible with Islamic faith. Today, in the 21st century, Umay's story represents something profound about cultural continuity and human needs. While most Turks are practicing Muslims who would never consciously worship a pre-Islamic goddess, the traditions that honored Umay continue in countless forms. The blue evil eye beads hanging from rearview mirrors, the protective amulets pinned to babies' clothing, the specific rituals surrounding childbirth, all carry echoes of the Golden Mother Goddess. In recent decades, there has been a renewed interest in pre-Islamic Turkic culture, and Umay has experienced something of a renaissance. Scholars, artists, and cultural activists have begun exploring and celebrating these ancient traditions. Umay has appeared in modern Turkish literature, art, and even as a popular name for girls. This revival is not about rejecting Islam, but about reclaiming a fuller picture of Turkish identity, acknowledging the deep roots that extend back thousands of years before Islamic conversion. Umay's story also speaks to a universal human truth. Certain needs transcend culture and religion. Every society has had to grapple with the dangers of childbirth, the vulnerability of children, and the fears of parents. The specific names and forms change, but the underlying impulse toward protection remains constant. Umay survived because that need never disappeared. What makes her particularly powerful is that she represents specifically feminine spiritual power in a tradition often dominated by male figures. While Tengri ruled the sky and war gods commanded armies, Umay governed the most fundamental human experience, bringing new life into the world and protecting it. In honoring her, ancient Turkish culture honored motherhood itself, recognizing it as sacred work worthy of divine attention. From the felt tents on the Central Asian steppes 3,000 years ago to modern hospital rooms in Istanbul, Ankara, and Ashgabat today, Umay's influence persists. She is the invisible thread connecting modern Turks to their most ancient ancestors, a reminder that beneath the layers of empires, religions, and centuries, certain human experiences remain forever unchanged. The mother's prayer for her child's safety, whispered in the darkness, has always been the same. And Umay, the Golden Mother Goddess, is still listening. What do you think about the survival of pre-Islamic traditions in Turkish culture? Should these ancient practices be preserved, or do they belong to history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And check out our video on Tengri, the eternal sky god of the Turks, next. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep exploring history.